station, Manx Radio.
This is Judith Lay welcoming you to Manx Radio and to the podcast of this week's edition of At Your Service.
Manx Radio.
Today we're uncovering some hidden gems in Nairobi and in Peel. But first, some music. Next Sunday is Advent Sunday, the start of the time of preparation for the celebration of Christmas and the start of a new church year. So today, many acts of worship will include a moment to pause and reflect and renew our firm belief that Christ's loving reign will ultimately guard our lives and overcome all in our troubled world. And that's reflected in our first hymn today, as we join the St. Michael singers with Christ triumphant, ever reigning, Saviour, Master, King. A very stirring version there of Christ Triumphant from the St. Michael Singers, conducted by Paul Leddington Wright. And so to my guest today, another recent visitor to the island, an Anglican priest, Rev'd Cyprian Yobera. Originally from Nairobi, Cyprian is passionate about empowering people on the margins, particularly children, And a charity he founded some years ago is dedicated to uncovering the hidden gems in one of Africa's largest urban slums, giving food and some education to the children living on the streets just outside Nairobi, trying to break the cycle of poverty and helping them to reach their full potential. Cyprian has also worked in the UK, in Manchester, but still with people living on the margins. And even though he's no longer in a parish setting, his passion for raising up people is just as strong, and now works alongside emerging leaders, nurturing their resilience and their servant qualities. But to find out how all of this came about, Cyprian joins me now to tell his story.
I'm originally from Kenya, born in a very village setting, going to school barefooted. My parents were Christians, and so I was brought up in a Christian home, and then moved from the village when I was about 9 into a city, big city. I was a little bit lost for a while in the big city. And then in the city went to day school, but that is very important for me in terms of how my life panned out, because all along in the village, I stayed with my mom. My dad was mostly coming and going because he worked away from the village in a nearby town. So he came on weekends. When we moved to the city, initially it was with Dad, and Mom remained in the village because she was a teacher and she needed a transfer. And when she finally got her transfer, then we had both our parents. But my brother and I were day scholars, while 3 of my other siblings were boarding all their life in primary. But then for my high school, I went to boarding school. And this is significant for me because being brought up in a Christian family, I was surrounded by all Christian behavior, let's put it that way, and sort of took it for granted. Then when I went to boarding school, I knew the good behavior, but it was not coming naturally when I wasn't surrounded by it. And so there I realized that I needed to make a personal decision to follow this God that my parents brought me up following. And so there were some changes I needed to make at boarding school. I feel like there was a crossroad where I found myself doing the wrong thing by mixing it with doing the right thing on the other hand, and the two conflicting, and then making the decision. In my 4th year in high school, I made the decision, hey, I'm going to grab hold of one end, which is the Christian end, which I was brought up with, and accept Christ personally and walk this journey of faith personally.
Looking back on that time now, would you pick out one person or a group of people who were significant and helped you at that crossroads?
Yeah, in the high school that we went, the prefects were the most powerful people in school. And the head prefect, the head boy, was the most powerful of them all. I say that because one day I had just come into high school, feeling lonely at a corner. He came and put his arm around me, and I was like, wow, the power and yet the humility to put an arm around me. Now, he was a Christian, and he invited me to Christian Union. And I think my journey started there, even though I only went full circle 3.5 years later to actually give my life to Christ. But the journey began there. And then when I accepted and stepped in, there was a group called the Navigators that served in our school. And they're the ones who picked me up in terms of the discipleship that then happened from that time on. Amongst them was a contemporary, was just a year ahead of me, that sort of took me on, and he helped me with my scripture memory and keeping on the straight and narrow and accountability and so on. So I called him my spiritual uncle. But then one significant person in high school was my chaplain. He was a Scotsman. His influence, his gentleness. When I was still grappling with the crossroad, I would attend a Bible study in his house, and his wife would provide the loveliest cakes and biscuits. And in high school, hungry boys, boarding school, a cup of tea and a piece of cake was just like heaven.
And now it's you who has a care for young people very much at the heart of your ministry. So tell me how life worked out for you then after you'd finished your education.
Well, because this is where it started, let me go back to that conversion. It was 11th of May, 1980. And that night, Sunday night, we had been to Christian Union. Somebody had preached. I don't remember the topic. I don't remember what was said. I just remember that when I went to bed that night, I couldn't sleep. And I was tossing and turning. And midnight was coming in. And I thought, I must do something so that I rest. And I was wrestling with that crossroad. And so I woke a person up that I knew was a Christian. I remember so well, he's called Morris. I woke Morris up. Morris, wake up. I want to get saved. I want to accept Christ. I want to become a Christian. So Morris snatched me out of the dormitory because we're in a dormitory. So we're going to wake people up. He snatched me out of the dormitory and took me to a study. And then there we talked about it and he prayed with me. Said, well, your journey begins here. You commit yourself and stick to it. But in that wrestling, I had told God, save me from this wrestling, because if you do, I will talk to other young people that may be wrestling with the same, a mixture of messing up their lives, yet they know what the truth is. I will help them. And there I set myself up for youth ministry. I believe that's where it started. So I did another 2 years of high school, then A-level in Kenya. We used to do 4 years of secondary and 2 years of A-level. And in my A-level, I was a Christian all the while and was involved in the Christian Union and helped young people like myself. Then immediately after high school, I was recruited into an outreach group called Youth for Christ. And so that is where it really was cemented. And it was an evangelistic ministry. I'm also creative. So I love music, I love drama. And Youth for Christ used music at the time. And they would train us in music and then send us on the road in little teams going to schools and churches and markets and so on. And so my outreach work was really developed then. And I just fell in love with people. I was going to say fell in love with the ministry, but really I fell in love with people. I just loved to see faces light up, to see a smile come on somebody's face, feeling as if I have added some value to them. Just that's what gets me going. And the other thing with my being creative, I'm also a very curious person. So I love learning. And so I have many, many interests. And that has really helped me connect with people. Because people are people and there's beauty in everyone, I started to gravitate towards those that were marginalized in society because they are not having as good time as I am. And this whole thing of adding value to people being quite central in my life, I see who needs most value added to them. And it is the downtrodden, the marginalized that stand out. So while working with Youth for Christ, on my way to the office, I always met what in those days in Nairobi we called packing boys, street children. And I just started hanging out with them. And out of that began outreach to street children, which developed into a section of what Youth for Christ Kenya would be doing. Later, I got an opportunity to become the director of Kenya Youth for Christ. And so I built this aspect within Kenya Youth for Christ. So we had dual approaches to ministry, where we were going onto the streets for those that are from downtrodden, have run away from home, but come into even more dire poverty. Many come from the upcountry places and come into the city because you can go into garbage cans and so on and still survive. We built a home for them. And then those that were coming out of slums right there in Nairobi, we would go to the slum home and see whether we could add value to the parents so that they hold on to their kids rather than allow them to wander the streets. So that is where I really grounded my love for those that were really downtrodden in society. Yeah. The ministry in the slums has continued. So I set up my own charity called Kanzi. Kanzi is a beautiful name, and Kanzi means hidden treasure. So while we are in the slums, we start with just finding the little kids that really have no future if they were left to their own devices. They come from the poorest of the poor homes. In Kenya, there is no free education. And so what happens in the slums in Kenya is some people, some well-wishers, set up little informal schools. Cutting forward into that story, we went and looked for 4 of these informal schools and asked the people that have set them together, what can we do to help? And all of them, the first thing they said, if we provide food for them, then they will come faithfully to school, and also they will concentrate, they will remain awake. And so we started a feeding program. Started with very few, but right now we are feeding 600 children every school lunchtime. But just stories coming out of that. I've been there on a Monday, for example, when they're having their lunch. And before lunch, I have seen children that are fainting. And when I asked what's going on, you find that they did not have anything to eat over the weekend, since they don't come to school over the weekend. And on Monday, they are longing for the lunch to come in. There's once I sat with a child, and she had her lunch in a lunchbox, because they come with their own containers for lunch to be served in their containers, and then they eat. And this little girl wasn't eating her food. I found that she was actually saving the food to take back home, because she had siblings that don't come to school, and they too are hungry. So that's central to our work. The examination at the end of primary school is one that qualifies you to continue into high school. Right now, averagely, about 60% of children that are in primary school don't go into high school. A few of them do well against all odds, and we try and look for sponsorship for them to go to a boarding school, remove them out of the slums so that they are in a boarding school equal with other kids, and they are not discriminated just because they come from the slums. Their minds start to broaden. That's where we really see change start to really happen. God has to have a hand in it. I mean, if I was just working from a human's point of view, I would have walked away long ago, because I think the frustrations are more than one can bear on their own. God has to be involved. Some of what I look forward to, of course, is when these young people have been mentored through high school, gone into higher education, and some of them are starting to emerge, actually having jobs, they start to mentor others. They start to give what they were given. That is some of what keeps me going, is that multiplication is already starting to happen, and you can see it.
I, the Lord of wind and flame, I will tend the poor and lame. I will set a feast for them. My hand will set. Finest bread I will provide, till their hearts are satisfied. I will give my life to them. Whom shall I send? Here I am, Lord. Is it I, Lord? I have heard you calling in the night. I will go, Lord, if you lead me. I will hold your people in my heart.
My guest this morning is Rev'd Cyprian Yobera, and we've heard about his ministry finding hidden gems, hidden treasures amongst the street children of Nairobi. I wish we had more time to find out why he felt called to be ordained a priest in the Anglican Church, and what he did in Manchester, and what he's doing now. But all that will have to wait until his next visit to the island. Reverend Cyprian, thank you very much indeed for being here and for talking to us today.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed talking to you, and yes, I'm happy for the second visit.
Here I am, Lord. Is it I, Lord? I have heard you calling in the night. I will go, Lord, if you lead me. I will hold
When we take a look at today's notice board, you'll hear that there are more Christmas fairs for you to enjoy around the island. But next Saturday in Peel, there's going to be something a little different. It's the day of the Peel Christmas lights switch on, and it's also the day for a very imaginative retelling of the story of Christmas. And here to tell me about it is one of Peel's most enthusiastic commissioners, Mrs. Katryna Baptist.
Oh, I'm so excited, Judith. I'm so glad that you came. Thank you. We've got our usual Christmas light switch on event. It's on the 29th of November in the afternoon. It's the biggest event we've ever put on for Christmas before. And there's something really special happening there that I thought you would be interested in. We're having a live Nativity Trail. So it's a walk around Nativity with lots of different stations involving lots of different people and some live animals as well.
I know that the good of Peel is very much at your heart, which is why you're a commissioner, but also you're deeply Christian, and so this time is more than just a time to switch on lights and think about Christmas shopping.
Absolutely. And the thing I'm most excited about is that we have all different people from all over the community getting involved together. And I think that's what it should be about, really. So we have all different churches involved. We've got them acting. We've got them helping with crafts. We've got the Methodists, Live in Hope. We've got the Cathedral and Vineyard. And then we've also got people who aren't involved in the church normally. So we've got Sing Up are going to be the angels singing some lovely songs. We've got the Pantaloons, who are some actors. They're going to be Herod's men. And then we've also got the youth club. They're going to be the inn. They're operating a little cafe, and they're going to have an innkeeper there as well.
So how does it actually work? Where do I need to be and what time? And talk me through it.
The Walk Around Nativity event is 2:30 till 5. It's mostly happening around Marketplace. So in Marketplace, that's where we've got Herod's men. They're looking for the promised king, but you're not to tell them where he is. And that's where the inn is as well, where you can get a hot drink, something to eat, and also meet the innkeeper. We've taken over the library for the day. So if you go to the library, that's actually the census office. If you go there, you can use a traditional reed pen, which is what they used in Jesus' time. And there's a pot of ink so you can sign your name on some parchment. You can hang a prayer or a wish on the tree, on the Christmas tree, make a bookmark, and there's story time happening there every half hour with Joe Smart from the Methodists. And then if you head into St. Peter's Church Gardens, we're going to have a number of marquees in there. So the most exciting thing, arguably, is the live animals. So we have a tiny horse. We couldn't get a donkey. Some sheep and a calf. And then the usual characters will be there. So people will get to meet the shepherds, the wise men, the angels, Mary, Joseph, and baby Jesus. And at each station, there's something for the children to do. So there's a different craft activity at each, and it's really interactive. So everybody's a storyteller. They can ask questions. They can smell myrrh. They can take some frankincense home. They get some chocolate coins. I couldn't quite stretch to gold coins. So we've got gold chocolate coins. They can make their own little nativity characters using some peg dolls or some stones. There's all different things. And then they finally get a copy of the nativity that they can take home as a gift.
This is taking the Christmas story to people who perhaps wouldn't have an opportunity to think about what this season is all about. But it must have taken an awful lot of work. Katryna, did you find that people were keen to join in?
It has taken quite a lot of work to pull it together, but it's been a really fun job. It's been fun work. I mean, I've learned a lot as well. So we have Santa there, and Santa has his sleigh, and the children can go and see Santa and go and get a gift. And I didn't realise that Santa is St. Nicholas, isn't it? So there's an information board that's going to go there as well.
You haven't mentioned money. Is there a charge for this at all?
No, everything's free. The commissioners have a budget, an events budget. We thought it was a good way to spend the money that we have and trying to do something for the community. There are some charities there, so they'll be collecting money for themselves. But no, it's all free to come to, no cost at all. Even the fairground rides are going to be free. So it's the 29th of November. Between 2:30 and 5 o'clock, the lights are being switched on at 5 o'clock. So that's the end of the event. And it's going to be at Marketplace in Peel.
Thank you, Peel Commissioner Katryna Baptist, inviting us to rediscover the real reason for the Christmas season by following the live Nativity Trail in Peel next Saturday afternoon. There's going to be a brand new retelling of the Christmas story in Douglas this year, and Reverend Alex Brown will be joining me here in a couple of weeks to tell us all about it. But if you can't wait until then, take a look at the website christmaslive.im and you'll find all the details there. And let's finish now with a look at the rest of this week's notice board. This evening, the 23rd, the Mariners Choir will be in Ballafesson Chapel in Port Erin at 6:30, when the preacher will be Reverend Chris Belfield. And as usual, the Mariners service will be followed by supper and community hymn singing. The Bride Wesley Guild regular Monday evening meetings continue tomorrow at 7:30 in Bride Methodist Chapel, when Phil Crane and Chris Martin will be talking about journeying, a particular form of pilgrimage. The evening is open to everyone, with a warm welcome and, of course, refreshments too. And speaking of refreshments, on Thursday the 27th, you're invited to Ballagary Chapel in St Mark's Village for their very popular Tea at 3, a delicious afternoon tea served on Thursday afternoon at 3 o'clock, and all are welcome. Looking ahead to next weekend, and so much happening on Saturday the 29th. There's a coffee morning in the town hall in Ramsey with cake stall, a raffle and a bear to be named and won. There's teas and coffees and admission is just £1 and it's open from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. This is a Manx charity fundraising event and all proceeds will benefit people living with Huntington's disease. Manx-born Alex Fisher will be there. She's an occupational therapist helping sufferers here and also in Venezuela, and this coffee morning will raise awareness as well as funds for both communities. There's also a coffee morning on Saturday the 29th in Baldrine Methodist Church. It's open from 10:30 until noon, with cake stalls, a raffle and a warm welcome for everyone. Also next Saturday, Kirkbraden Church and halls will be filled with art and festive cheer as the Isle of Man Art Society present their Christmas market and fair. Open from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m, there'll be various stalls, a grand raffle, hot food, entertainment and crafts, as well as art on display with a chance to meet the artists and meet Father Christmas too. Also on Saturday the 29th, it's Christmas fair time at the Abbey Church Hall in Ballasalla. Open from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m, Father Christmas will be visiting between 2:30 and 3:30. And here's a nice little extra. Children can buy small gifts for the special people in their life and will be helped to wrap them up secretly. It's free admission for children, £2 admission for each adult, and that includes hot drinks and mince pies or shortbreads. And the two Catholic churches in the south are working together for their Christmas fair next Saturday the 29th in St Columba's Church Hall on Castletown Road in Port Erin. Open from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m, stalls include cakes, Christmas gifts and handmade cards, as well as a chocolate tombola and raffles. All proceeds will be given to the St Vincent de Paul Society, which confidentially helps families and individuals in the south of the island. Free admission for children, £2 admission for adults, and that includes a hot drink and biscuits. And we finish with a look ahead to next Sunday, November the 30th, the first Sunday of Advent, and there's an Advent carol service in Trinity Methodist Church at Rosemount here in Douglas. A sequence of music and readings by candlelight with the Ballagary singers, soloist Mandy Griffin and organist and musical director Gareth Moore. That service in Trinity, Rosemount is next Sunday afternoon at 4 p.m. And that's all that we've time for now. But I'll be back tonight at 9 o'clock with Sundown, and I'd love you to come and join me in our virtual lounge for easy listening music and your requests and dedications. And so, till whenever we meet again, this is Judith saying thank you for listening, and I wish you and those you love a blessed and peaceful week. And a very good morning.
The Nation Station.